Joining this live stream, welcome. This is a presentation about the Kalmiopsis Wilderness by Ellie Friedmann. She's a guide on the Rogue, Salmon, and Chetco rivers, and she's going to talk today a little bit about the Kalmiopsis Wilderness.
I'm hoping by the end of this presentation, you guys know why the Kalmiopsis is really cool and unique and why we like and love to be boating there. So to give you guys a quick overview of what this presentation is going to be about, it's going to give you kind of the who, what, when, where, why of the Kalmiopsis. And then we're going to dive into a little bit about the ecosystem. There's a lot of really cool things to protect it for the future. So what is the Kalmiopsis? It is a gorgeous 180,000 acre wilderness. It's located within what we call the Rogue River Siskiyou National Forest. And it was designated in 1964 in the original Wilderness Act. It is headwaters to 3 wild and scenic rivers. Those rivers are the Smith River, the North Fork Smith River, the Chetco, and the Illinois. It also boasts the highest concentration of rare plants in Oregon, and really one of the highest concentrations of rare plant Klondike fire in 2018. I think the Forest Service on their website characterizes it really well when they say that the Kalmiopsis is characterized by deep, rough canyons, sharp rock ridges, and clear, rushing mountain streams and rivers. Up in the corner, you can see a really awesome photo of the upper North Fork Smith River with, in the foreground, these really awesome pitcher plants called Darlingtonia that I'll talk about a little bit later. So where exactly is the Kalmiopsis? Here I can give you a little bit of context of what's dark green here. I want to draw attention especially to this area here, just a little bit to the west of the wilderness, and that's what we call North and South Kalmiopsis Roadless areas. And they contain a lot of headwater streams like Josephine, Rough and Ready, Baldface, to these really pristine wild and scenic rivers that we go boating on. When you do the Rogue River, which is kind of up in the top corner of the map, we do the upper part. It's not shown. There's a wild rogue wilderness up here, and then Grants Pass is kind of to our right, and Cave Junction is a little bit lower. In the Kalmiopsis, we boat as a company as northwest to Illinois River right here, and then we also do an inflatable ducky trip on the Chetco, upper and lower Chetco. So now we're going to talk a little bit about Little Frog, and then this is one of our guides boating on the Illinois River. So to go back in time, all the way through geologic layers, right below the Earth's crust, these are all the magma and lava rocks that we know of. So peridotite is one of those original rocks. It's the super red rock here, and then serpentinite is kind of a branch of the peridotite rock, but it's been altered. It's been metamorphosed by water, and that adds different groups to it, makes it that green color. They both have a lot of magnesium and iron. They both contain general groups like calcium or nitrogen, things that are really usually very abundant in soil and very useful for plants. As a quick aside, I hear a lot of contains these minerals. So when you see serpentinite, which you can see at Mule Creek Canyon on the Rogue River, if you've ever done the Rogue as well, you're looking at serpentinite. So we call this crazy mineral imbalance Serpentine Syndrome. So as these rocks weather down flower that was discovered in 1930 by a botanist named Lilla Leach. And she actually thought that this flower was from a different family, the Kalmi family. And once she discovered where it was actually belonged, she named it Kalmiopsis, opsis being like, so like the Kalmi flower, and Leachiana being her last name. This is a super, really pretty pink small shrub. Another really cool adaptation that plants use in this area is not to draw nutrients at all from the soil. They actually go and become insectivorous, and so they eat all the insects around. The first was that pitcher plant that I talked about before, the Darlingtonia. It has a little nectar in its tube, and insects fly in, attracted to that, kind of get a little confused, end up in the nectar, and they get digested by this pitcher plant. The other one is the butterwort, and this is the photo here on the top right. and they have a slightly different method of eating insects, but they have little glands on their leaves, and they secrete like a mucus, attracts the bugs. Once the bug is attached, they'll secrete additional enzymes. They'll actually digest the insides of the bugs and liquefy the guts and eat them. All little black dots you see here are just the exoskeletons, only get their food from insects. There are also a couple other interesting adaptations. For example, the pennywort deals with a lot of the nickel in the soil by just storing it in its leaves and then adding an extra affinity, looking especially for calcium to try to keep itself alive. A lot of ways, these plants adapt to Serpentine Syndrome, and they actually thrive in this area, which is pretty cool. Because of these rocky soils, because the plants are holding whatever soil you have in place, the rivers of the Kalmiopsis have incredible water quality, and kayaking is basically floating in space. It doesn't even look like there's any water there to begin with. The Upper Chetco Creek, which is a tributary to the North Fork Smith River, and this is actually a benchmark reach, a benchmark stretch for water quality, which means that when people are measuring the water quality of other streams, you want to know, is it good or not? And you can compare it to baldface to figure out how your quality is interested in boating. But they're also really important nutrient sources for the Kalmiopsis. The Illinois River is one of the last wild salmon spawning grounds in Oregon. And what I mean by that is that they're less able to survive. The Illinois and the North Fork of the John Day are now one of these only pristine salmon spawning grounds in Oregon. You can see them, but it's pretty rare. If you just come at the right time, you can see them jumping up the Little Falls in the Illinois River. On the right is Baldface Creek, again, that pristine water quality stream. Salmon will go all the way up to the very headwaters of Baldface to spawn. And here is a little guppy. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe a fish expert can chime in on the identity of this fish. But the important part of salmon, especially for this area, is that they born, they leave, but they come back. And after they spawn, they die in this area. And they've brought all the nutrients that they've collected out in the ocean, out in other areas, back to the Kalmiopsis. And in an area that's very nutrient poor or heavy metal rich, this can be a really incredible source for the rest of the flora and fauna around them. So when we go boating in the Kalmiopsis, we can kind of see all these plants. We can look for all these interesting areas, and the best way to experience all these rugged canyons is from the river. Work for them. For example, for the rest of the trip, you go through these like 100 amazing class 3-4 boulder garden, beautiful rapids, little drops. But you can also not only get Kalmiopsis off the river, but you can get Kalmiopsis on the river of the Chetco. But it's, I'd say, a crown jewel wilderness class 4 or 5 multi-day trip. You go in the middle of nowhere, you see nobody. Pictures of Josephine Creek, Rough and Ready. Moving on to kind of what's going on now. There's a few things that threaten the Kalmiopsis. The two main I want to talk about are Port Orford disease and a couple nickel strip mining proposals in the area. Port Orford disease is a waterborne root disease. It's basically comes in through the streams, up through the roots of Port Orford cedars and some yews, which really are water-loving, awesome trees that live. You've seen photos of them on the Rough and Ready Creek, and especially on Josephine Creek. Unfortunately, it's non-native, and it likes to travel through car tires, and it likes to travel the ecosystem here. So I advise to be careful when you're kind of transferring in between different wilderness areas. The second threat to the Kalmiopsis is a nickel strip mine. There's a couple proposals, especially in the area that I talked to you about, the South Kalmiopsis Roadless Area. This is just next to the wilderness with all the headwater streams, Josephine, Rough and Ready, Baldface Creek. And the problem with strip mining, metal mining, is that this industry is a very small industry. There's only really 98 active metal mines. They account for half of the toxic pollution, the toxic chemical pollution here in the US. And this is not including all the inactive mines. There's not really a good way to clean up what they would mean for the Kalmiopsis ecosystem, especially because we're placed in the headwater. Anything that happens, lawmakers The South Kalmiopsis Roadless Area, while a good step, is only an administrative rule, and we would love to see some permanent protection. So one of the ways to do that is to designate it wilderness. It's already been considered viable from a 2004 study, a few other studies. To really combat mining, though, we would love to institute a permanent mining withdrawal. We have a little bit of time because there's a temporary mining withdrawal instituted in 2016 for 20 years by the Obama administration, but really lobbying Congress. This is a congressional act, would be really important. Mining has been given special privileges ever since the 1872 mining. There's a picture right there of a first descent. We can designate those wild and scenic. While this is only a protection really for a water, a way to pay attention to this waterway, it doesn't really help with terrestrial issues like mining, but it's a really good way to, the way that we like to bother our congressmen is through letters, including Wyden and Merkley, as you see below, really want to help protect all of our public lands. And so they would definitely be open to hearing.
Ellie, thank you so much for doing that. There's a chat function on YouTube, and if anybody has a question before we finish up, please add a question below. Alex Booth says, "Go Ellie." So that's the one comment we've had so far, and we're hoping to do.
Hi, Alex.
We're hoping to do more of these YouTube live events. It's something new to us, and so if Eric the Fishman says, "Thanks, great chat." So thanks for chiming in, Eric.
You're welcome.
And Ellie, thanks for doing this today. And I'm looking forward to us doing another one in the future.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, there's a couple of awesome resources here as well if people want to learn more about the Kalmiopsis and where I got my information.
Cool. All right, well, thanks, Ellie.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.